have fun. I want to now call Aviral. He's going to talk about sort of like 101 Web3. Come on in. Thank you.
Thanks, Sridhar. I'm just testing the mic. Can everyone hear me at the back? Awesome, perfect. Cool. Can we project the screen? Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Aviral. I lead marketing at Polygon. I've essentially been with Polygon for about the last year and seen that transition from Matic to Polygon. For those of you who aren't as aware about us, I'll try to touch on it a bit, and we can definitely try to keep this session interactive. I'll try and save the last 5 minutes for questions, but if along the way you feel like you would want to sort of ask something, feel free to raise your hands. We'll try and sort of get to each of your questions. Cool, so without further ado, this is going to be more of an introductory chat. We're going to try and find out what's so different about Web3. So first up, I think, especially as like a novice, this is one diagram that kind of helps explain everything in terms of what's really happening in the world of Web3 right now. Why is it so different? Why is everyone so excited? What is this new internet, and how is this going to be better for everyone, right? So when we think about the sort of history of the web, and especially like what it was like in the first version, when you had the Yahoos, when you had the Google sort of emerge, they were essentially all, companies that were allowing you to read on the internet, right? So it was great for actually information. It was great to find out more about what's happening on the web, but you didn't necessarily interact with the internet, right? Like you were more of a consumer, so to speak. In the second sort of phase that basically came about, which in a sense can be called the social phase, is where you could read and write. So that was far more interactive. That saw a huge sort of boom in the usage of the internet as well, and obviously mobile sort of penetration also made it much easier to access the billions of users who are using the internet every day today. So again, the people that ruled the roost then were Facebook, YouTube, where you could sort of watch a video and instantaneously comment on it. The feedback loops were much shorter, and it allowed you to really sort of delve and find out what was happening across the globe at your fingertips, right? And now we come to essentially what Web3 has to offer, which is kind of standing on the shoulder of giants in a certain sense. What does internet in the next sort of phase look like? It's going to be about reading, writing, and executing, owning, earning. There's just a whole lot of potential that opens up with Web3 because you've got, for the first time, like let's take an example here, right? Like the person who potentially, even if we go beyond the web, like when computing first started, the person who bought the first MacBook didn't necessarily have any upside in mass adoption, or wasn't really invested in gaining any traction out of word of mouth. But we've been able to change that. We've been able to negate that with this tokenization of companies and what we have to offer by allowing everyone to be a participant in this movement, by allowing you to earn as you sort of participate in each of these chapters. When it comes to gaming as well, you can own assets, you can actually sort of sell assets, you can have pre-sales, you can have secondary sales for your assets. So all of this enables Web3 to be a much larger ecosystem, to be an ecosystem that is more robust, to be an ecosystem that allows all the participants to essentially make money out of it. With that said, the sort of key differentiator between this transition that we're in, because Web 2 is here to stay. Consumer tech is changing our lives. It's making it easier. I'm sure like a lot of you took your Ubers here and in the morning probably woke up to check your news on your InShots or whatever news app that you're consuming. So life's become a whole lot easier, but there you are essentially the product in a certain sense. I think it was Chamath who first said, Chamath was the first growth hacker at Facebook who first said that if you're not paying for it, you are the product, right? And that's what we're seeing with big tech kind of constantly using user data for monetization as opposed to actually getting consumers to pay for product. While for a country like India especially, it really works because you're able to provide access to the billions of users, it still isn't necessarily the best experience because you're kind of handing over all your likes, preferences, data. You have no control over the feed that you see, And so this is becoming a huge part of the conversation as well. And Web3 essentially allows you to be an owner. It allows participation. It allows you to stake. I don't want to go into too many technicals, but it allows you to sort of get skin in the game by staking your, tokens as well, and as a participant, or across each of these platforms, including social. With that said, the sort of problem at this moment in Web3 and how it sort of emerged is once Ethereum came along after Bitcoin, and Vitalik kind of provided the thesis that you could essentially decentralize everything and not just currencies. The first thing that became an issue was scalability, because while the sort of genesis for the Web3 movement is decentralization, it's almost impossible to scale it while retaining the security of Ethereum, while retaining the true decentralization aspects of no centralized servers, no centralized teams, etc. So one of the biggest problems at this point, as we think about these 3 billion gamers coming online to Web3 and participating in this next movement, is how do we sort of ensure that people are also set up for success, projects are set up for success in a way that they can actually account for this massive traffic coming on board. And this is essentially called the blockchain trilemma, which is you can only optimize for 2 out of these 3 things typically. So you can either be scalable and decentralized but not as secure, or you can be secure and scalable but not as decentralized. And but the right mix is somewhere in the middle, which is what we're trying to solve with Polygon as well. And it essentially has come down to us trying to take various routes along with others who are trying to scale Ethereum. At this point, we've got several solutions from your zero-knowledge rollups, which are hopefully going to be able to scale the Web3 in a way that is truly welcoming and truly accessible for the next set of users. So everything from Polygon Hermes, Polygon Nightfall, which is our venture with EY, Polygon Zero, and Polygon Maiden is essentially working on that. We've got other sort of projects that are also working to help scale Ethereum, from Optimism, Arbitrum, Starkware, to projects in this domain. And what's essentially working at this point is our POS chain, which has been live for the last 2 years, and it's really been able to amass and accommodate most of the traffic in terms of the having most of the daily active users on Web3 and participate in the Polygon ecosystem. We've also launched Polygon Avail, that now allows games and projects to have their own blockchain and own their sort of interaction on their chain. So in terms of Ethereum scaling at this point, we've kind of got a whole suite of solutions that allows us to sort of engage with audiences and use cases that are building on Web3. This is supremely integral for gaming, because, like I said, if we have to sort of really engage with the masses, and gaming is seen as potentially, quote unquote, like the gateway drug for Web3, it's going to allow a lot of people to really explore it, in an interactive manner. So that is really the hope, that we're able to sort of build out this whole ecosystem off the back of NFT gaming. We've got DeFi sort of interactions with gaming now. You've got a lot of cross-pollination of these categories as well, in terms of how you're able to bake in these effects. And when we talk about sort of Web3 gaming in particular, what is really different is the community angle, right? That's something that has never existed before. And to be able to sort of monetize it from day minus, right? Like the day you have an idea for your game, you can actually go back to your community, you can start building a community around it, and have certain aspects of the game, whether that's land, whether that's your NFTs in the pre-sale mode, and actually start monetizing and building from day one. You're not necessarily at the mercy of raising funds or investors who might have their own term sheets, which don't necessarily align with your goals. So what truly is like going to be a game changer here in the sort of Web3 ecosystem is people coming and trying to sort of build communities around this and take it to the next level. So with this, we're still at the very super nascent stages of Web3. I think even in terms of how all of these verticals come together and interact with each other, we're going to see a lot more happen and shape up over the next 3 to 5 years. I think even the most sort of, the most engaging Web3 games at this point still sort of lack the UI, UX to be able to get to that mass adoption. And it's all in the works. It's all, I'm sure you're going to hear through talks today as well in terms of how that is being planned for. But that is where I feel like it's a huge opportunity for Indian game developers as well to participate in this movement, to get in early on this rocket ship, which I know is a cliche, especially in Bangalore, but it's one that hopefully sort of will shape the internet. So with that, I would like to sort of just open the floor up for any questions that you might have about Web3 gaming, about Polygon Studios, which essentially is our entity that is specifically designed to cater to NFT gaming and the metaverse projects. And yeah. Yeah, I think we have.
You told that you guys are working with Ethereum on a large part.
Yeah.
Ethereum has the scalability issue, as you know. How about Polkadot? Are you doing anything in that respect? Because Polkadot is much more scalable. It has much advanced security, and you might be knowing about the parachains and the relay chain concept. I mean, Gavin was the person who did the Ethereum coding entirely, and Vitalik was the person who was supporting him.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry. So with Polkadot, I think for us at Polygon, we are completely sort of tied down to the Ethereum ecosystem at this point. We find that there is enough merit in scaling Ethereum because of how decentralized and secure it is. And a lot of the other chains that are L1 chains, so typically how we sort of call Polkadot, Solana, other L1 chains that are sort of competing with Ethereum. And of course, it's going to be a multi-chain ecosystem over a large enough time frame, but at this point, as developers continue to build, it's a choice between which platform and ecosystem and communities you're going to engage with. Ethereum has the most robust sort of secure as well as scalable, or rather secure as well as decentralized setup. There isn't, I mean, we know this for a fact that the Ethereum, original team or the core team is absolutely sort of open in terms of what the developments are on the ecosystem. And from that perspective, we find that to be a much better bet in terms of where it's probably going to be a multi-chain ecosystem on Ethereum, and you have choice and you have flexibility in terms of where in that blockchain trilemma you want to see yourself. And for those reasons, at this point, we're tied down to Ethereum. But yeah, like I said, it's about ensuring that Ethereum also gets to that same level of scalability without compromising on security.
In this blockchain trilemma,
Yeah.
So there are so many solutions available, right? Different blockchain works in different way. So for gaming and NFT, how do you choose and why you choose a particular blockchain?
That's a great question, right? So I think it also depends on specifically what games you're trying to build, right? What is the audience level? What is the sort of critical mass that you're planning to hit? You certainly need with gaming for concurrent sort of players to be online at the same time. You need it to be truly scalable. We've seen blockchains across the board suffer at the moment. We've had downtimes. In fact, Polygon had its own first downtime this year as well. And what we're seeing with gaming that becomes critical is trying to see what truly allows for your, because also, with tokens involved, you want this to be absolutely secure. And so for those reasons, invariably, you're trying to find what is the right mix for your product. So for instance, on Polygon at this point, we offer Polygon Edge as a solution which allows you to have complete control over your own blockchain. We allow for, and we're seeing like a lot of games sort of come on board for that reason, because you have that chain uninterrupted for yourself and for your sort of community, right? And at the same time, you sort of want it, especially if you are sort of participating in this Web3 ecosystem, you want to sort of retain that decentralization so that your community can truly participate and help build that ecosystem. We've got Polygon Studios here. We've got the team here as well. We'd love to sort of chat with you specifically if you're thinking of sort of arriving at that decision for yourself. We'd love to sort of interact with you at the booth as well.
Okay, so one more question. When Ethereum 2.0 is going to come, when they are moving to POS, so then how Polygon plays a role? Because in 2.0, the transaction throughput will be very high, so people may not need Polygon, right?
We don't see it as that, because for us, it will always be about scaling Ethereum, right? Or rather, for us, it's about scaling Ethereum to whatever degree is beyond ETH 2.0 as well. So even when we look at, like, we've not even scratched the surface at this point in terms of the transactions on Web3, right? Like, the daily active users compared to Web2 are, just a fraction of that number at this point, right? And when we think about it, still one of the biggest use cases at this point are trading bots, right? Like, that is what is necessarily taking up a lot of the bandwidth at this point. So once we have more, once we have the first scalable social media platform on Web3, which sort of attracts that 50 to 100 million users, at that point, it becomes imperative that, even the sort of, I think, 100,000 transactions per second that Ethereum 2.0 is planning to, deploy is not going to necessarily suffice, right? So that is essentially the view, that this is a long game, and Polygon's going to be able to sort of scale that up through and through.
So the lore behind play-to-earn games is that people can actually earn a living playing, right? So right now, the checking out process of those NFTs that they earn inside the game as rewards, they are essentially not liquid. So what's the current, where are we at a stage?
I think we're at very early stages of figuring out how play-to-earn scales. We're already seeing a lot more models around this in terms of play and earn, which feels far more sustainable, far more scalable. I think play-to-earn, specifically with everything that happened with Axie Infinity in the Philippines through the lockdown, got a lot of traction for those reasons, but it's about identifying where the sort of unit economics for this eventually rests, right? And from that perspective, over a long enough time frame, I think play and earn is the sort of solution that we'll be sort of moving towards. As far as play to earn NFTs are concerned, I think in terms of secondary markets potentially coming to fore and building in some sort of referral ecosystems and models that allow a true participation from the community is what will sort of see this next phase of growth there.
Yeah, we'll take one last question. Sir, can we have someone else to take the lead? Yeah, there is one. Yeah. This will be the one last question. Yeah. In the corner,
Hi. A couple of questions, actually. Firstly, do you think...
can we keep it to one?
Yeah. Do you think blockchain in gaming is inevitable? Secondly, although, I mean, there is a common notion that although the smart people on the gaming or the blockchain side are hugely optimistic about cryptos or NFTs being in gaming, but that hardcore gamers are actually a little skeptical about this. Do you think their skepticism has any, is it justifiable, especially when you talk about community and you speak about security as well?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think especially with regards to gaming, I would say it is definitely inevitable on account of the fact that Web3 as a movement is gaining so much traction. And there are sort of, communities already building out this roadmap for how, you can participate as an owner in the NFT ecosystem and build that out across sort of, multiple games and have that sort of flow seamlessly through the gaming ecosystems. In terms of the sort of reservations that some of the gamers have at this point, specifically with regards to potentially, play to earn, play and earn, I think those are conversations worth sort of engaging in. Those are debates worth having, because especially when we think about Web3, it's entirely community based. It's built by a community. It's supposed to be totally decentralized, over a long enough time frame. So you need those ecosystems and those communities to be participating and truly sort of working together. So from a gamer's perspective as well, I think the apprehensions at this point, specifically with any legacy technology, is you don't necessarily want to adapt, or you don't necessarily want to change super quickly. But I think it's about finding that right, and like I said, right, Web3 games do leave a lot to be desired at this point in terms of UI UX. So we will get there. I think it's about engaging on both fronts and sort of coming up with what truly works as a Web3 game as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Aviral. Guys, a big round of applause.
Thanks, folks.
Aviral. So that was Aviral from Polygon Studios. Next up.